Hello and welcome to this special afternoon episode of we're going to be talking about I was going to say this episode of Market Money, but this is not Market Money. We're doing so we had two episodes before on talking about how to purchase your home. So we covered the total process of buying your home from start to finish. And we also did the total cost of home ownership. Two videos that if you're interested in investing in real estate, you definitely should check out. So I wanted to do this third video with our same special guest, Judy Benjamin, to talk about the process of using or leveraging Airbnb as an investment. So it's meant to be a beginner's guide. So if you've never done it before but you're interested, this will be the video to watch. If you're interested in purchasing a home for the very first time, I'll link the other two videos in the description of this video over on YouTube. If you're watching from other platforms as we're premiering this live, feel free to ask your questions on those platforms, but we'll just try to ensure that we keep all the links and stuff over here on YouTube. All right. So please join me in welcoming our special guest, Judy Benjamin. Judy, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Jermaine. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. So this is your third time on our channel, so
Yes.
really appreciate it.
No problem. I mean, your channel really brings a lot of information to people. So anytime you need me to do anything, I'm available.
All right, I'll hold it to that, and I'm happy
Yes.
we have witnesses, right? So
Yeah.
would have done two videos today. The first one we spoke about the total cost of owning a home.
Yes.
Person still watch this video today. We did that over 2 years ago. We also
Yes.
did the process of buying your first home. So we went through those steps. So we're going to treat this as a part 3. So we're not going to cover anything that we covered in those videos, but feel free to reference it if anything is there. But what we want to do is focus now on the investment side of real estate, because most persons after they bought their first home, they're thinking about, okay, what next?
Yes.
All right. So that's where we want to start. So how do we
Let's say
start?
that,
Let's say that we're ready to take that next step. How do we start thinking about
okay.
that process?
All right. Well, to take that next step, the first thing we have to look at is what money we have available in order to take that next step. So just like when you bought your first home, you're going to have to apply to the mortgage company if it is that you need a mortgage, and they will tell you what you can afford to buy. For the average person, usually what they can afford to buy is a smaller unit than what they bought before. So we're looking at a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment. And one of the most lucrative, I would say, things to do now is to go into short-term rentals. So you can buy a duplex type home or add to the existing home that you have in order to have another space, or you can just buy an apartment, whether on the North Coast or in Kingston or wherever you are, because short-term rental is doing well almost everywhere in Jamaica right now. So that would be the next step, to decide what you want to buy and how much you're going to spend, just as if you were buying your regular home. So the other thing that we could also look at is what will your return be? So I told this to a client up to recently. Go on the Airbnb site, just because they're the most popular in Jamaica. Go on the site and look at what people are renting spaces for. So you can make a calculation as to what your income will be, and that will offset, of course, what you're able to spend. So that's a good place to start, by looking at the site, the Airbnb or other short-term sites, and deciding, okay, well, I can afford a 1-bedroom in Kingston 8, Kingston 5, Kingston 3, Ocho Rios, wherever it is, so that you can have an idea of what the income will be. And when you look at that site, you can also pick up what level of availability, how the occupancy has been for that particular type of real estate. So that's where I would start, by looking at what the income can be, and then I would look for the property to match the income that I desire.
All right. So you said something there that I want to hone in on for a second, right? So usually if we're looking for an investment property, that's likely to be our second property, right?
Yes,
Which means likely we won't be able to use our NHT benefit because we probably use that for our primary residence. So
exactly.
just in case there's somebody watching this who their first property is going to be an investment property, would that be
Mhm.
an issue for NHT? Is it something that they allow, or it doesn't really matter to them as long as you're able to repay that mortgage?
Well, they don't ask you what you're going to use it for. So once it's residential, if it's a commercial building, then of course not, because the NHC is really for to help people own homes. It's not for commercial space. So the important thing is that you go in and to you apply to buy a house. I don't
Okay.
think you should go into what you're using it for, because in some areas, Airbnb is considered to be commercial activity. So you need to be very careful when you're selecting who you're going to borrow money from in order to go into this commercial business.
Okay. And since Airbnb is usually used at like apartments, I mean, I've seen homes,
Yes,
but it's mainly apartments. There
yes,
are some things that we need to think about as well, right? Like the
definitely.
maintenance, any fees or so that's associated with the property,
Well, I
who's
want
going
us.
to, yeah.
No, sorry, Jermaine. Finish what you're saying. I had a thought. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was just saying that is something that we should factor in our cost, right?
That's correct. Because so when you look at short-term rental, you can look at it as if you're going to set up an official short-term rental, meaning you're going to register with the tourist board. Because you can do that, register with the tourist board of Jamaica, and then there are fees that you have to pay for the rooms. It's almost like you're a mini hotel. So that is something that some short-term owners, especially ones on the North Coast, would do. But you can also just have an apartment that you furnish and you put it on Airbnb and you rent it. So the fees that you have to think about, if you're whether you're going to register with tourist board or not, you have to consider the maintenance fee of the complex that you're in. That's one. You have to also consider the maintenance of your unit. So when you look at the short term, if any of you have ever been on the Airbnb website, you see that they have a cleaning fee. So that cleaning fee is something that is charged in addition, and that you use that to have the place clean. So the people who are renting actually pay for the cleaning of it. Okay, so there's some those are the kind of fees that you have to think about and see if it makes sense for you.
Okay. All right. So I wanted us to do like a breakdown on the cost and that stuff a little bit later. But for now, so let's say that we are in the process. We got our we got everything that we need to get to actually purchase the property, right? I
Yes.
want to skip that part completely.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say we're now free and clear, and we're about to own that property or wherever we're using for the Airbnb. What
Yes.
would be our next step to register with Airbnb? What's that process like?
Um, the registration process is simple, but it's long. It's tedious. I have a Airbnb that I assist in managing in Kingston. It's a house, it's not an apartment, and it took them about a month to put everything in place. So after you do the actual registration, you have to also have like your terms of reference for your house, the rules of the house that you're looking at. You have to find your cleaners, your gardeners, whoever is going to be helping you to manage that property. You have to find them and you have to contract with them, right? The other thing is that you have to consider electricity. Some people are putting in air conditioned units that have timers or only come on a certain time of day, because Jermaine, I can tell you, when that guest leaves and you don't have another guest coming right away, or the cleaner is not coming right away, you can have a light bill that is just out of your imagination, right? So you have to look at the use of the utilities. I know that JPS had a pay as you go system where I know some people use. So they will allow you to use, let's say you use $5,000 electricity, and after that you pay to JPS directly. There's a special, not, I shouldn't say special, there's a plan that they have that allows that. So that is something you have to look at. But what I find is that you have to get your cleaner on board. You have to find a proper person to do that. And the person is going to do the laundry for the unit. So the physical taking care of the unit is important, because in a wink, your product can just be no longer attractive. right? The other thing is that many people are bringing in the decorators to decorate it, because people who are going into Airbnbs or any short-term rental units, they really want to feel like they're in a hotel, So the facilities of the unit will be important, if it has a tennis court, a pool, that sort of thing. And of course, the quality of the furniture that you have in it. So to buy an apartment and then put your old furniture in it and believe that you're going to make money, you will not. Because when you look at what is out there, people are very selective. And the Airbnb is almost like it's comparing to a hotel. That's what it compares to. So in terms of the quality of your unit, you have to be on point with that. The complaints that I've heard about Airbnb is, one, the pictures that are being displayed when you get to the unit, it's not the same, and that's a breach of an Airbnb policy. Whatever you have in the photo is exactly what the person should find. I mean, the color of the bedspread, you know what I mean? Exact. And the cleanliness, those are the two things that I hear people speak about mostly, in terms of being disgruntled. So because of that, those are the areas that I would want people to focus on, see what the real cost of that will be, and then decide if this will be a good investment for you.
Okay, so you're saying pretty much you need to organize your team to help you prepare, to help you
Yes,
take care of and maintain that property. What
correct.
about the marketing side? Is it that you have the responsibility to market your own property, or do you just rely on Airbnb for that?
Well, there people do both. I think most people just rely on Airbnb for that because it's such a high demand platform. I mean, people are using it. So usually it is good. What you have to ensure is that your pictures on Airbnb are perfect. So you should get somebody to take good pictures for you so that your product presents well. So I think that is where you would have to make sure that on Airbnb you present well. But I also think that you should send it out to your sphere. It would be a good idea for you to have, if you have past guests, sorry, who have come, to have them send it out and just build your own database. Build your own database. But Airbnb really, because of the popularity of it, you hardly have to do anything more.
And then I guess, of course, location has a big factor in that, because if it's at a certain
Definitely.
location, then those probably are rented a lot easier without a lot of marketing. So that's
Exactly.
also a factor as well.
Yes, you're
Okay.
right. You're right. There's some places that are known to have Airbnb. So I mean, are known to. I was going to segue into, when you, because we were talking about when you're choosing. One of the important things is to ensure that the complex that you're in allows for short-term rental. So there are some complexes that allow for it, and those are places that people who are looking for short-term rentals, they go straight to it. Because that complex allows it.
But that would probably mean, are those complexes higher in terms of maintenance costs because of the coming and going of a lot of
I don't
people?
I don't think so. So I don't think so. Some of them are new, so we don't know yet really what the impact will be. But you find that, if you're selling, if a developer makes something and it is in a neighborhood that attracts Airbnb, let's say New Kingston for argument's sake, and he advertised that you can do it, then the bylaws of the complex would allow it. And that means that more people will buy into it as an investment, and that will maybe cause the price to be a little higher perhaps, but it will be a place that people know that they can get. As an investor, your money is secure because people always be coming, and there will be no strata difficulty or problem in your complex in doing for you to do short-term rental in the complex.
So if it is that you are at an apartment where they don't allow Airbnbs and you're using it for Airbnbs, that's against the law?
It's against the law. It's against the law, and there can be fines and so against you. The truth is that the bylaws of, I mean, Jamaican people I think we're getting better in terms of community living, but the bylaws of a strata or any community, because sometimes townhouses have them also, any shared living, would say that you are not to do A, B, C, D. If you do it, you're in breach of the bylaws, and the rules of the community will outline what that the what I don't know what their penalty would be for that. Some just don't allow it, none at all. Maybe you can't use any common area, and they may put a caveat against your property. So it is important when you're doing it to find out. And I mean, when I say find out, don't just take it for the person who's selling it to you, their word. I think you should ask them for a copy of the bylaws, because most of the bylaws will state if you're allowed to do Airbnb or not.
Okay.
There was
So I
a
wanted to talk-
not to cut you though, Jermaine, but there was a in the newspaper a couple of months ago. There was a case where this person was doing Airbnb, and the community came down hard on them, and they were fined because it was seen that it's a commercial activity in a residential space, which does not
Yeah.
allow commercial. So you have some of those things. So you have to be careful. If you're on the North Coast, it's a little different because the North Coast is geared towards guests.
It's kind of tourist area, so you kind of assume that, yeah. Okay.
Right. But in Kingston, just be careful.
So I want to ask you about, I think, one of the most important topics, and the thing that I've heard people complain the most about from the owner side of Airbnb is guest management. Like, what do you do to manage that as the owner of an Airbnb? Because one of the reasons I've heard why apartments don't necessarily want to allow Airbnbs is sometimes the guests can be unpredictable, right? They will do certain things. So how would you guide us in terms of managing that part?
I remember once I heard about after you book on Airbnb, and we're using Airbnb as a generic term, but after you book on Airbnb, then you're in contact with the host. And I remember one host sent an like a questionnaire or like an application to learn a little bit more about the person, because people had started using Airbnb units as party houses, as all sorts of different things. You would have heard in the news also that we had where it was being used by, I would say, unscrupulous people as like a hideout, because there's no paperwork that goes into the Airbnb. So I remember when all of that came out, there was one owner who had started to use like a questionnaire, and if you didn't want to answer it, then you keep moving. That is really what it is. The other thing that I think is a good idea is if the person is there for longer than a week, I think you should do an interim cleaning. Your person goes in and cleans. So let's say it's rented for a week, then you can say every 3 days your person will go in and clean. That kind of helps you to manage it. I don't want to say too much because I don't want people to feel that it's not a good thing. It is a good thing, but it's just that you need to manage it, and you need to talk to other people.
I think it would help the guests as well, because as you said, we kind of treat it like a hotel. So if we're there for 3 days, clothes all over the place, shoes, and we use stuff. And so if you come in and clean halfway through, then it kind of renews our experience from the person using the property.
Exactly. But my only problem with that is that I'm not sure how that will eat into the profit of the business. Because let's say you're going to a cleaning fees, maybe like $100 per stay, 100 US. And if somebody is going to pay for 5 days and they're paying 150 per night, you're going to be using 2 of those nights to clean the place, or 1.5. You know what I mean? So it has to be thought out properly. But really and truly, if the person is going to be there over a certain amount of time, I definitely recommend a mid-stay cleaning.
Okay.
And that kind of helps you, that helps you to keep things. Plus, if they destroy things, Airbnb, once you have pictures of it, Airbnb will charge them and will reimburse you.
Okay. I was gonna ask you if there is any recourse if something should happen. Let's say I let somebody into my brand new property, bought brand new furniture, it looks nice, and then they decide to have a party. I know the place is trashed. Do I have any recourse in that event?
Yeah, Airbnb does have something in their process that you have to send in pictures and make a claim right away. And they usually, I've heard about it happening once or twice, and the claim was honored. So they have that. Yeah, they do. They
Okay.
definitely do. But it is so important. Um, it's so important to have you somebody managing it. I mean, there are people who manage Airbnbs on behalf of other people, and they do make that kind of midweek check-in depending on
Yeah.
who it is. And if it's two people coming for a meeting or for meetings in Kingston, that's different. But when people coming on vacation, you have to be clear. And the other thing that you have to be clear about is smoking or not smoking. And
Yeah.
smoking or not smoking means anything that can be smoked or not. You have to be clear
Okay.
in your rules for your Airbnb. And Airbnb, the website, their portal that they use for owners, it has guidelines in it. So
Okay.
you're not flying blind. They have guidelines.
Okay, and I figure that because Airbnb itself is, I don't remember if they're listed or not, but they're a global brand, and so I'm assuming that they're gonna have a lot of guidelines and
They
rules
do.
and best practices
They
that you
do.
can follow
They
and go through.
do.
Do they
But
provide like training for homeowners?
not really training, but they have a lot of tools. I mean, I'm sorry that I didn't like pull on some to show you, but they have a lot of tools, and it is really a remarkable portal. The package that they offer is remarkable. I mean, I've thought about everything.
Okay. Okay.
I've thought about
All
everything.
right. So let's talk about the security
God.
aspect. What are some best practices there? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes when I am actually in a property, sometimes I'll have like not necessarily, I don't call it paranoia, but I honestly don't know if there may be, cameras,
Somebody,
if there are things that,
somebody has a key.
yeah, or somebody else has a key. Like how what is the best practices you've seen there, and what is
Okay.
allowed? Because I get why you'd have a camera maybe on the outside, maybe covering the doors, etc. But there are some times when it feels like it's somebody else's
Like they're,
house.
like they're
And
watching you. Like
yes,
they're
so
watching you.
how do you manage that?
Um, so the hidden camera thing, I don't think Airbnb allows it. Because that's like an invasion of privacy. But you're going to have the security system of the property will be in place, and of course you may have a camera at the door. I went to one the other day, and she did have a camera at the door, so that when the person was checking in, like a ring, she was able to walk them through the check-in. Because she had a ring, so when they ring, she was able to open the door and so remotely, and then give them the code. And so there are different things that exist. I think one of the most common is that you'll have a keypad on the door, and usually the manager would change that keypad, change the code whenever you have a new visitor. Right? So that is one. You go into the complex, on the door, the side of the door, you see a keypad, you put in the code, and you have access. So that is the one that I see most in complexes where you're allowed to have Airbnb. In complexes where you're not allowed to have Airbnb and people still do it, you just have a key. So that you will either pick up the key from the security guard, or there's an arrangement. So I know of one where there is they pick up the key when you're coming to Jamaica. You pick up the key from a certain spot, and then you go straight to the house. Some people have somebody meet you at the house, let you in, give you the key, and then they leave. So that's really it. But when it comes to the electronic, I'm not sure if there's going to be a camera in watching you. I don't think Airbnb.
Well, really, no, but I was actually kidding with that, but I'm
No, but
actually,
no, but Jermaine, it has crossed my mind before. I'm
yeah.
looking, you're going, and you kind of say, I wonder,
It's something I think about whenever I travel, whether it's hotel or Airbnb. I'm just always, you see these things on social media, and
Yes,
so I'm just like,
it's
y- you
true.
know, yeah. But
Mm.
in terms of now, if anything happens to your guest at your property, is that your responsibility? So, for example, if somebody has some sort of medical issue, or let's say there's an incident in terms of security, how is that usually treated?
Well, what I've noticed is that most of the guest rules, they have emergency numbers, and the host is also an emergency contact, because you're in touch with them when you made your booking. You could be in touch with them, you could choose to, But in Jamaica, what I've noticed is that most of them have private security. So you'll find that you have the ambulance, you have those things in place. So that is something that is put in place. I do not know about the payment of it, and I believe that Airbnb would have a certain level of insurance. That's
Okay.
something to look at when you
Is it something that me as the owner of the Airbnb would have to think about? Do I have to be concerned with the security of my guest?
I think so. It
Okay.
may not be your responsibility, but for sure you would be concerned because I mean one bad thing and your business is over, right?
Mhm.
One incident. So usually the you'd put in electronic security and whatever other means that you may have, depending on if it's a house or a townhouse or apartment. Yeah. I think you
And
would
is that
have
a part of the sign up? Like, do you have any medical conditions or anything? Is that usually asked?
I don't I don't think that is usually asked because remember the history of Airbnb, the history of Airbnb is you and Renee are coming to Jamaica and I have an extra room and I rent you a room.
Yeah.
That's the original. So you find that it was very like home sharing more than people invest in buying apartments and doing it, but it just morphed into that.
Yeah.
So I think that it is important if you're going to buy somewhere that you have some security thing set up, whether it's just panic button that will call an ambulance or a doctor or something. I think that's important. And I think that is important for anybody who is renting to somebody who is not used to the area. So let us say you're renting to somebody, a regular rental to somebody coming from Italy to Jamaica. You're going to give them that information, a doctor that they can call, or hospital. You give them that information to help to make them feel comfortable. So as a
Okay.
host, you would do the same.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the last thing I'll ask you before we take questions, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you have questions for Judy, please post them in the chat on all platforms now. I'm taking questions in about 5 minutes. Ask all the questions that you have, and we'll be sure to go through them. If you're watching this on the replay, just post it in the comments on YouTube,
Mhm.
and we'll be sure to have a part two. I feel like we may need to have a part two, Judy, for the numbers aspect. So you see, like
Yes,
we broke out the total cost of ownership, because in my mind now I'm thinking that I'd love to know some of the costs for some of the things that you've mentioned and
yes.
look at how much we could feasibly rent it for,
I think we
work
could
out
do,
those numbers and see how it would make sense.
yeah, I think we could do one where we actually look at the Airbnb, choose a property, see what the income is. We can do that in preparation and then we do it. I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
I think we
So
should.
persons who are watching, let me know if that would be meaningful for you, for us to do that video, and then we go from there. Okay, so
Hmm.
my last question to you is from, I know that we said we're gonna do the numbers video, but just for now, would you say in your experience in managing Airbnb that the investment has been worth it?
Um, there's one person who I know is coming out of it, but they have a house. They have a 3-bedroom house, beautiful house. But I think that the management of a house, an older house, is difficult. A lot of things go wrong. I think if you're buying a brand new apartment, 1 or 2 bedroom, I think it can work. The people I've been speaking to have like maybe a 75-80% occupancy, which is good. So I think it's something to look into. I'm very excited for us to look at the numbers involved to see exactly what the price point that would be best suited for our investors. Yes, for sure.
Okay,
Definitely.
yeah, because I mean, so right now, because the hurdles that you have to overcome. So you mentioned something key there. That is what we learned when we bought our first investment property. That number, they always say you should plan for 70 to 80% occupancy, meaning
Yes,
there are some months where even if you weren't doing Airbnb and you're just doing that your own rentals, you have
yes,
to factor in some amount of time that the property will not be rented.
that's
And
correct.
that may be cash that because imagine you having to pay a mortgage on a property and you're not getting any rentals, because I figure there may be some seasonality as well. There are some areas where maybe the start of the year, summer, end of the year rentals are great, but
Yeah.
then maybe in some months you're not getting any. I mean, I don't really know the seasons.
I
I'm
know,
just saying that.
but you know what we find with Airbnb, a lot of Jamaicans who are coming home. So let us say you're bringing your family, and
Yeah.
where you used to live or where your parents live can't accommodate you. You get an
Yes. You
Airbnb
just use that Airbnb. Yeah.
because we have Airbnbs in every sort of place in Jamaica you can think about. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not just Kingston, Mandeville, Montego Bay, North Coast. No, it's everywhere. Because there are people who just need to come and stay near their family, but their family can't accommodate, and they
Yeah.
come to
Yeah.
Airbnb.
And I mean, the truth is, when it just grew to prominence for us, I wasn't interested in it. I was used to the all inclusive hotel. I was good with that. But
Yeah.
when the costs started to get so different,
Yes.
I remember we went out of town to do an interview with someone, and we needed a place just for the night, and we found an Airbnb, I think, for $15,000, and that was fine. But before, we'd have to find like $50,000-$60,000 to stay
Yes.
somewhere for the
Yes.
night. It just didn't make sense, because even if we buy our own food, it's still not going to
Exactly.
cost us, as much as it did before.
Yeah.
So um,
No man, I saw saying the Airbnb, the short-term rental, just changed the face of tourism.
tourism, yeah,
No
yeah,
man, I'm just saying the act of being a
ah,
tourist. You
yeah,
being a
yeah,
tourist, it changed the whole thing. You know?
okay.
So that is why it is so important for the place to be clean, in good condition. Because you don't want to go to a country and you don't know anybody there. When you get there, the place is not up to standard. The other
Yeah,
thing that I've seen is the a guest is to leave at 11. They ask for a pushback, and then the guest is coming at 3 o'clock, and the cleaning can't happen. So you end up having to give them a discount. You have to refund them one night, which may just be your profit.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
so it is so important to have everything um together. But there's
yeah.
some people who are doing very well in it. I mean, there's a girl that I know, and she manages about 30 units altogether.
30?
Yeah, that's what she does.
Three
She
zero?
works for
Okay.
people, you know. And then since knowing her a bit, other people, there's this one guy who manages almost all the Airbnb in one of the high rises in Jamaica. So there is money to be made in different areas of it, but I know we're looking at the investment side of it.
Yes. And I mean, so I mean, Judy, I have in mind maybe 10 videos to do with you or cover the different aspects of
Yeah,
it.
man, that's
But
fine.
I'd love to, well, I'd probably just ask you before we take questions, is there anything else that maybe we didn't talk about that you think would be good for a beginner to know, right? Because we want persons who are thinking about it to watch
Mm-hmm.
this video, get their questions answered. They can watch the other two videos that we've done about the
Right.
process of buying
First,
the home and the cost. But is there anything that we could tell them here before we start
no.
taking questions that would help them to just, be comfortable with the process?
No, I think I said it already. Going onto the Airbnb site and looking at what's out there, and then understanding where you're buying into and what is required of you there. What is important is a pool is also good, because remember that the people who are coming, there's some Airbnbs are corporate and some are not, but there are people who are coming and they're going to want to have a pool, But the pool
Yeah,
means party also. So
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, so let's take some questions. Again, if you're watching this on a replay and you have questions for Judy, we're gonna leave her details in the description of the video over on
right,
YouTube. And we have done other videos that we link as well about the
right.
total cost of home ownership and then
Yes.
the process of buying a home. So those can cover the buying process. And what we're talking about here primarily is the now process of just owning and operating an Airbnb.
Right.
All right, so we're gonna take questions here, starting with Dejan. Okay, so I would like to get into the Airbnb business, but I don't have a property. How can I get started?
Hi, Dejan. Dejan, we have seen people who are renting and subletting for Airbnb. No, the only way you can do that though is that the owner of the property that you're renting would have to be okay with it. So it would be legal for you to rent somewhere under the disguise of you're going to live there, or your mother going to live there, and then you start to rent it out. So every day we see questions as realtors asking, anybody has a 2-bedroom that can be sublet and it's for Airbnb. So there are people in the world, I forget the name of this exact couple, who started and they have a multi-million-dollar business because they rented and sublet to Airbnb. So that is what you'd have to do. But Dejan, you can also start with a room in your house if you have that facility. You know what I mean? It does not have to be a big fancy place. There are people looking for all sorts of accommodation. So you can start with that also. If you have the space, you can set up a little self-contained wherever you live, because people want different sorts of experiences when they look at Airbnb. So when you go on the Airbnb site, look at it and you'll see what people are doing.
And that's where you suggest we start, right? Go there and see
Yes,
what the options are, see how much they rent for, and then you
exactly.
can get an idea as to what your income would be if you were
Yes.
to rent it, and then you can compare that income with the cost of ownership, which is the mortgage, any maintenance that you may have, any furniture that you may need to buy,
Mhm.
etc. Right?
Because Jermaine, when you think about it, let us say you have the facility at home that you have a room and a bathroom, right? Don't need a kitchen, room and a bathroom, and let us say you can rent that for $100 a night. Let's say $80 a night, and you can rent that for 20 out of the 30 days. You can make a little extra money with just a room in your home. You know what I mean? So you have to really think it through. It doesn't always have to be a fancy apartment.
Yeah, I like how that sounds,
It's so
and
goody.
you know me, right? I'm there, but I think Renee and I agree that we don't feel comfortable because we have an extra room, but it doesn't adequately separate.
Yes,
I would have to put that in place,
right.
but
But when you think about it, it's something that can work.
yeah, yeah.
Something
All
that
right,
can
next question from Humble Boss. Question on the North Coast: what is the minimum to purchase a property on that side?
on the North Coast. Well, Humble Boss, when you think about North Coast, you're thinking from St. Mary all the way past Montego Bay going down to Negril. And you can be thinking beachside or you can be thinking hillside. So this question is hard to answer. I would encourage that you go to my website and look at it and see what the options could be. That's Benjamin's Realty Services. But if you're going like in the hills of St. Anne, you can find a house that is in a more rural community for maybe the teens, maybe 12, 13, 14, depending on what it is. But if you're going on the North Coast now where you have beach access, that's big money. That is maybe, I would say, easily up to $1 million US depending. But you can find apartments on the North Coast that may be selling for 400,000 US or so on. And I'm quoting in US because that is the figure that it's quoted in, right? So if you're looking at maybe 80, 90 million Jamaican for on the
And I
North.
would say it really depends. It's a very broad question to answer because I've seen wide ranges of property prices depending on the state of the property, whether or not it's
Exactly.
new, whether or not it's an apartment, whether or not it's really just varies. I think what you told us in the first video, Judy, is that we should know what our budget is first and then let the
Mhm.
budget determine what we look for. Because we don't
Exactly.
want to go and look, we like something for
And you
70 million, but we
can't
only
buy
can
it.
afford 30,
Right.
right?
And
So,
when you look at North Coast, remember on our North Coast, a lot of those parishes are hillside. They're
yeah.
mountainous. So,
Yeah.
it depends on what you're looking for.
And then you
Definitely.
don't necessarily want a property that's too far away from maybe the airport,
Exactly.
because if somebody has to drive too far to get to your property, even though it's affordable, they may just opt for something closer.
Exactly. Because they're going to have to get a taxi
So
or
to
else
and to and from, yeah.
some kind of transportation. Definitely.
Yeah. Next question from Dejan. Can the link for the Airbnb website be shared? We can share it in the description, sure. But if you just Google Airbnb, I'm sure
Yeah, you'll
you'll
get
get
it.
there. Yeah.
Definitely.
Factor YouTube says, I'm in the business of marketing for properties through media, particularly listing photos and videos, but at times have issues with reaching hosts. How would you recommend finding hosts to reach out?
Okay, so usually the host only speaks to you after you book the place. So I think that there's a message on Airbnb. I know for sure you can send a message. So I don't know. I'm not sure. So what you would have to do is put yourself in a space to be marketing those properties, because you say you're in the business of marketing for properties through media. So what you would have to do is call those hosts. The only way to get the host is through the website. You
Well,
can
it
send a
sounds,
message.
yeah, so it sounds like, I mean, and you can let me know if this is wrong, Factor. It sounds like he wants to be able to reach potential hosts to be able to market through their service. But yeah, I think you're right. You don't really get to speak to the host until you've actually
Right.
booked them up. So it's more like a networking and relationship thing where,
Exactly.
or you just, since you're on YouTube, maybe just market yourself as someone who can help them and maybe
And
they
they,
reach out to you.
I
Yeah.
think so, because right now, Factor, right now we're having an issue with people pulling images off of websites and putting them on YouTube as if it's your own to build
Yeah.
following. We're having a big problem with that. So I believe you should try to find a host. Try to just send a message and see. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't know. Or
Yeah.
as Jermaine says, I think that's the best approach. You have a product, you're in marketing of real estate, and just send out your product.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the safest way. Get people to reach out to you, because if you reach out to them, you can, be seen as harassing them, and then that may not work out too well for you. People
Yeah,
like, even though they may need a service, they want it to be mentioned at the time they're interested in it. It kind
yeah,
of feels pushy otherwise.
right. And the other
Um,
thing is,
yeah,
yeah, and the other thing is that you have to realize that real estate, the real estate laws are quite strict. And to market real estate, no, to sell real estate the law speaks about marketing and selling real estate. So if you don't get that person's permission to use those pictures, you can be prosecuted for it. So
it's
that's
good to
something
know
to
the law,
get.
right?
Yeah.
All right, Sean is asking how easy it is to get an Airbnb property rented. If I just bought or built a property in one of the major towns, how easy is it?
Well, Sean, I think that a lot of it depends on how you position your Airbnb property online. So if you have it really very nicely decorated, I don't think it should be difficult at all. Most people having about a 70 to 80% um, occupancy, the ones that I know of. So it has to do with your product. There's no,
And I'd say, probably to add to that, Sean, it would kind of depend on, if, well, I don't know if this is still a thing, but one of the persons who I spoke to once said that, for example, different hosts may have a certain ranking as well, right? If you I guess after somebody stays there, they rate you. Those houses that are rated higher may get a little bit, more. So let's say I do a search for Portmore Airbnb. I figure there's some sort of ranking that's there. um, so I would say it may depend on maybe the number of options within that area. But if
mhm,
it's a major town, then there may be more than enough demand where persons may be looking for it, or maybe scrolling through multiple pages. Where if you're just starting, you may not be ranked at the number one because you've literally never rented before. Is
right.
that how it works?
Well, I think that you may be right, but I also think that it's important when your pictures come up, your place looks spanking.
Yeah, man, I know. So I'm just saying. I mean, because if I remember, I know Rennie does usually most of our booking, right? But from what I can remember, if, let's say, you, Judy, who's done 200 rentals, rated, 4.5 out of five
Yes,
stars, I
yes.
put up a property today. They're gonna recommend your property because I haven't rented to anyone
True.
yet.
Yeah.
I'm not even rated.
You know what you
So,
could do though, that you could do? You could actually have an open house,
mm,
invite people to the property to look at it, go through it, see, not spend a night, spend an evening, and then they rank it. No,
okay,
I have been asked to spend a weekend at a property before and to recommend what I
leave
think,
a rating.
leave
Okay,
a rating. So
that's
I
a good
think
idea.
that would be something. That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Free tip for you, Sean.
Free tip,
Uh,
Sean.
Sean is also asking, what are some things to look out for when buying a property?
If you're buying the property for short-term rental, you have to ensure that the complex that you're buying in allows it. That's the biggest thing. And you have to take that not from word of mouth. You have to see the rules and regulations of the complex. That's my big. That's the first. That's what I would say in terms of short-term rental.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rowan is asking, is there a need to register with the JHTA to be a host in Jamaica?
Well, we did speak about that very briefly. It is encouraged. I cannot say to you that you must, because
Okay.
Airbnb is there's no, it's not running through any Jamaican system for
Okay.
any kind of tracking. But it depends on where you are, and when we discuss the figures of it, we can look at that a little bit more, because there's a fee to register with GH.
JHTA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll just say to everyone watching, if you're interested in us having that episode where we break down the numbers, leave us a comment.
Yes.
Because I have to try and book Judy's time, and Judy wants to know that the video will be valuable to you. So let us know by leaving a comment, and if we get a certain amount of comments, then I'm sure she'll say, well, yeah, she'll make the time.
For sure.
All right. Next question from Sean. How hard it is to get exposure for your property? I think we kind of covered that already, Sean. If let me know if you still want us to answer, but I think we kind of discussed that already in terms of.
Wait, Sean, have you ever been on the Sean, I want you to go on the Airbnb site. Go on it and look at it, because it's just a list of houses, So it is for you to get extra exposure, you'd have to look at the bylaws of the rules of Airbnb and how they do their thing. When we do it, I will investigate that, so that next time we come back to talk about it, we'll have that answer. But I think you need to. Airbnb is just like any website. They must have some matrix in it that cause you to come up, for your place to be selected. But usually they ask you where location, price, size, availability, those things. So I'm not sure. So when you say exposure through Airbnb is simply a website. They're not a marketing tool. So we had said before that perhaps you should get a marketing person to help you to push it out there outside of just the Airbnb.
And the persons I know that do really well, and I mean, so I know a couple that does Airbnb rentals. They have a YouTube channel. So they do real estate videos. I'm sure they get a lot of interest that way.
Yes.
And if you think about how you would book something, if you want to book an Airbnb, you're probably going to ask in your network, hey, do you guys know anybody? Or if you don't know anybody there, you're going to go directly to the website, as Judy said.
Yes.
And I would just evaluate the process that you would use to select one for yourself and see what that process is like from the guest perspective, because that's ultimately what you're competing against.
Exactly.
And if you see what houses are shown first, then that's usually what puts you in the best position. But from my understanding, it's likely about the ranking, or I guess best fit based on what you're searching for.
I agree with you, Jermaine. Definitely.
Okay. So Sean is saying there's so much competition, I'm not sure how to get my ranking up. I think that's just a matter of time.
And I think you should ask Airbnb. They're so open. I think you should. So I'm not sure if Sean has one already. Not sure how to get my ranking
Sean,
up.
do you have one? Let us know.
Yeah, because I think you need to go to the Airbnb website for owners, for hosts, and see what they recommend.
Okay. And I think this is the final question. Factor says, thanks much. It can be seen as pushy, and with the issue you're having with people taking photos and putting them up, I could possibly help with that aspect of it. So that's what Factor says. Let me check on Instagram, see if we have any questions. Okay. Dwayne Smith on Instagram is saying Airbnb doesn't allow solicitation via messaging. So Factor, I think that's
right. So you have to
you won't be able
as
to.
we were saying, you'd have to book the place, and then you can talk to the owner about outside of it.
Yeah. Okay. And then now, if you're kind of, you would even if you book and you ask them about it, you could still be flagged for solicitation if somebody's saying why you want to do other business with me.
Yes.
That's outside of the context of the property. So it gets tricky.
Don't do it.
It's like a cold call. So I wouldn't risk it, I'd say, because especially if you're a new owner, you don't necessarily want persons to.
No, that question would have been for Sean, call me later and we can talk about it.
Yeah, Sean. So I'll share Judy's info in the
Yeah.
chat and in the description. And yeah.
Yeah.
So let me say, did say remind me of your website, Judy?
Benjamin's Realty Services.
Benjamin's
Yeah, with an S.
Services.com.
That's correct.
Yes, let me share it on the screen.
Yeah, or they can get us at Benjamin's Realty JA at Instagram.
Benjamin's Realty JA on Instagram. All right, let me type that. Instagram. And I can't spell Benjamin's Realty JA.
REALTYJA, yes.
Okay. And well, yeah, for everything else, we'll put it in the description. But if you check out the other videos that will likely be recommended after watching this one, since it has to do with real estate, we did have Judy's information in the description, and I'll add it shortly after this one. All right. Okay, so my final question for you, Judy, since there's no more, I'm just going to do a quick check. So in terms of well, we spoke about some of the things that you should consider in terms of risk, right? So we spoke about security, spoke about location being important, we spoke about how the property is being managed, etc. Is there anything that outside of let's say if it's an apartment, outside of what the strata would allow, is there any other type of risk that we may need to think about?
I think we covered most, if not all of it. There's some businesses that when you're going to, you have to just decide that you're going to, there's some risk, and you mitigate against it as best you can. But it is allowing a stranger into your property that you have no background, you know anything about them. So that in itself is a risk. So if you're adverse to that, this is not the business for you, because you're going to worry all the time, So I think it's one of those businesses that you just have to just jump in. I think it's one of those businesses that you make your assessment, because guess what? If it doesn't work, just go long-term rental. It may not be as much a profit, but I think that is how we have to look at it. It's just, it is, even though it's not natural for us as Jamaicans, but I think you should just do it. I really think that a lot of people have done well. So far we have no serious tax implication. There was some talk about this back in, like I said, 2014, 15, when it first came into Jamaica, if the government would be able to use the Airbnb, if Airbnb would have to turn over information for the government to tax you. We have heard nothing. As a matter of fact, I think Ed Bartlett had come out and said it won't be done, but we don't know. So it is real estate is a good investment. So whether you're doing short-term or long-term, once you have the right property, it is important that you have a little space, because if it's empty for a month or two, or for 10 days when you need it to be, booked, you need to know what those things are, and you just move forward. Just move forward with it. Once you can do it.
I'll say, just from my little bit of experience with real estate investing, just be sure that you have the cash flow for those months that you may not have rental. And I say may not because a lot of nuances, of course, the location, all of that stuff. But you have to, that rule that they say to plan for 70 to 80% occupancy. Yes. I think it's an excellent rule, because that was a challenge for us for our rental property. We simply just didn't have enough cash to weather the storm whenever we couldn't
Mm-hmm.
find a tenant. And
Yeah.
so with Airbnb, because you're not likely to rent it every single day, because as Judy said, if you plan for 20 days and you calculate that cost to maybe cover, everything that you need, then again, that's still a good guide to work with. So it's something that you won't know until you start, and
Exactly.
you have to kind of count the cost and go through it in that way.
Yeah.
And I would say have a plan B. So if you plan to do Airbnb and it doesn't work out, as Judy said,
Yeah.
maybe you look at long-term rentals instead.
Yeah, but you know what happening. What is happening now is, and I know that time is against us, but culturally, when you furnish a place, because for Airbnb, remember that you're going to spend some money to furnish it. So when you furnish that place, you're also going to when if it doesn't work and you switch to a long-term rental situation, you have an apartment full of furniture.
Yeah.
Who in Jamaica is renting furnished? Because right
Yeah.
now that's kind of a question that we're asking ourselves. No, because we have a lot of furnished 2 bedrooms around. If you look on any website, when you go to my website and look, you'll see them. So it's
Yeah.
kind of you have to just make up your mind you're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes the first year may not be good. You just have to, you know what I mean? Like
Okay.
any investment.
Yeah. So Raquel, you're joining us at the tail end. Raquel is asking, how do you get started? Raquel, we covered all of that at the start. So just watch the replay. We covered, so there are other videos that we did with Judy to cover the process of buying the home, the total cost of owning a home. And then we simply just spoke about the difference now if you're going down the route of Airbnb as an investment
Yeah.
option. So just watch from the start. We'll answer all of those questions for you.
Right.
And Raquel is saying, can you do insurance to mitigate some of the risk that we spoke about?
Well, you would have to have content insurance. Definitely, you have to have content
Okay.
insurance. So that's another expense. So when we're doing
Okay.
that one, we have to look at all
Yeah,
of
so,
those.
so really need to do that breakdown in terms of
Yeah.
expense. Because I'm very interested to see the ROI for an Airbnb. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Looking forward to that episode.
Okay.
And then Ron is saying that is the difference here. Ron is overseas. You have to report the income. So if you are a US person with a property in Jamaica, you have to report the income. That sounds fun.
See,
Sounds
that's
fun.
an upstanding young man.
Yes. And yeah, you should. That's what we recommend, right?
Yep. Yep.
All
Yep.
right. So Judy, thank you so much. Great session. And I think you covered all our questions fairly well. And I'll just ask you to say, before we close, how can persons reach out to you? First, you can say everything that you do in terms of services, how persons can reach out to you. And yeah, that's it. So go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I'm a real estate broker, and the company that I have, Benjamin's Realty Services, we do rentals, sales, leases. We also do property management, and we have a concierge service which takes into consideration if you need to have your house painted, your garden done, those kind of services to help you to rent or sell your home. We do that too. I can be reached at info@benjaminsrealtyservices.com. That's info at benjaminrealtyservices.com. I know it's long, so it will be in the link. You can just get in touch with me, send an email, and I will respond. My phone number is also 876-348-0011. That is my work number, so you can also send me a WhatsApp message and I'll respond. That's it from me.
Okay, so it's info at Benjamin's Realty Services.
Yes.
Okay. No JA, no services JA.
No JA.
Okay, so I'm putting that on the screen now. And you said your phone number. This is a business phone number, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me the phone number.
876
Yeah.
348
Uh-huh.
0011.
Okay, I'm going to share that on the screen as well,
Mm-hmm.
in case persons want to get it down.
Yes.
All
That's
right.
yes.
So thank you so much, Judy. Guys, we've been working with Judy for how long now, Judy? 4 years, 5 years now?
A while.
Yes, yes. So Judy is reliable, and so and she will take the time to go through your options with you,
Yes.
and so that's something I greatly appreciate.
Right.
And so yeah, we highly recommend her. So be sure to reach out and get whatever information you need. All
Sure.
right.
I'm here to help. A part of us. I mean, this is learn, grow, invest. So the learn is important. So
Definitely.
learning is important. Thank you,
All
Jeremy.
right. Thank you, Judy. So see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jermaine. Bye, everyone.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you do have questions, again, post them in the comments below the video. We are going to do part two of this, so we think it's going to be important to have one where we break down the numbers similar to the one we did for the total cost of ownership. And I really am asking you to take a minute before you go to like the video, share this to anyone who you know would be interested in owning Airbnb or who may be considering it as an investment. And so look out for more videos like this. We will be popping up every now and again to do them. So be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and we're not doing the posting of the video to social media anymore because we're really just trying to focus on getting the content out. So the best way to see it is to subscribe and turn on notifications. And so we'll see you again soon for another video like this. There may be one next week, who knows? All right, so take care.